My name is Dr. Reggie Wright Jr. I speak to educators and students about cultivating the conditions for academic success and positive character development. I was raised by my grandmother, who was a school teacher for 35 years. And my grandmother and I had a loving relationship, but we also had some friction in our relationship. And the friction was that my grandmother, she was adamant that I was going to get a good, solid education as long as God gave her breath in her body. I just didn't appreciate going to school. I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. I thought it was irrelevant. I didn't see how school could help me become a successful person in life because I just didn't see how what I was learning in school would correlate to real life experience. It wasn't until I actually read an article from Dr. King called The True Purpose of Education that I really understood, like, okay, education is the ability to acquire information, like gain intelligence and then be able to apply it. But it's not just what you learn, it's also who you are. And we call that character. So when I learned and read this article, it really changed my perspective. It shifted my attitude in regards to learning. And then I started becoming obsessed with reading and learning different things. And as I read, I learned more. And as I read and learned more, I became more of a person of value in the marketplace. And that's what really shifted my life. A lot of people think it was professional basketball, but it really was education.
So could you talk a little bit about your grandmother's expectations of you? Because I think
Oh,
also,
you have no idea. Like even when I think about it to myself, like it's weird because when I was growing up, my grandmother was this huge person of stature to me, right? But in reality, she's short. She's only like 5'3", but she was a giant to me. She was a giant in terms of her stature and what she said, and she had certain rules. It was like, I don't care what goes on outside of the home. I don't care what your peers have to say about you. I don't care what they think. Like your main objective, your main goal is to get an education. Don't bring grades into this house that are not acceptable. I know you have the potential. I know you have the ability. And she believed in time on task. She believed what you do most, you do best, right? So she really employed that in how she raised me. When I would come home from school, I could hear the kids outside playing. I could hear them. And sometimes I'd be like, can I go outside and play? Can I go outside and play? And her thing was, you're not going to do anything else until this schoolwork is done, right? And there would be days where I would get my homework done, and she'd be like, yes, you got your assigned work done, but you need to go on to the next chapter. You need to go ahead, read ahead, take the initiative, be proactive. This is what she was teaching me in elementary. I'm not lying to you. I'm not exaggerating. Like, these are true stories. And I'm like, I should think to myself, like, this lady is crazy. Like who does that? Even in the summertime, like there was no summer school for me, but she created a summer program. She gave me a summer reading program. She made me go to the library. I had to give her book reports. Like it was wild. And I only had a certain, it was like recess. Like I could go outside in the evening and I could play from 6 to 8 or 6 to 8:30. But when I would wake up in the morning, I had chores. Then I had to come in and do schoolwork. Then she would give me like a little break to eat lunch and we would take a nap. I'm like, I don't need a nap, but she needed a nap. I'm like, I don't need a nap. I'm fine. I'm young. Even if you don't sleep, you're gonna lay down. Like, so I had to lay down and take this nap. And then we would wake up and go to the library. And I would go to the library and then I would have a chance to play. But if I didn't do the work that had to get done during the day, there was no plan from 6 to 8, 6 to 8:30. She always gave me realistic expectations based off of my age and where I was at in life. But the standard did not change. So the standard was the standard in the first grade, which was the same standard in the 11th grade. Like you have the ability, you have the potential. I'm not going to let you give me excuses. I want your best. Your best will always be good enough, but I need to see that you're giving me your best, right? So those standards translate and transcended beyond just, my school years. It helped me as an adult, it helped me as a father, helped me as a husband, like it helps me as a professional speaker because the standards are the standards, right? And then, it taught me consistency, right? Like you build habits based off of being consistent. And my grandmother made sure that I understood that excellent habits was something that was going to be important if I was going to have any chance of being successful, not just academically, but in life. right? So then, like I talked to you about before, it was time on task. She truly believed, if you want to be a good basketball player, you go practice basketball. If you want to be a scholar, you need to work on your academics. You need to read, do your writing, your arithmetic, all that stuff. You can't be a scholar if you don't spend time, with your face in the book. And then she modeled the standard.
You talk a little bit about seeing your father, but not having a relationship with him. And
Mhm.
also like what the world is telling young Black boys of what you can be, and how this juxtaposition of your grandmother holding you to this standard and teaching you these lessons. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, so my father lived the next block over from me. So growing up in the inner city, I grew up on the 100 block of Collar Avenue. My father lived on South Walter, which is the street over in East Trenton, New Jersey. I didn't have a relationship with him. Growing up, my father was an alcoholic, and he was also very abusive to my mother when they were married when I was young. So he was always verbally abusive to all of us, in terms of how he would speak and carry and conduct himself. So the first thing that they did for me was I always said to myself that when I became older and I became a father or a husband, whatever the case may be, I did not want to become like my father. So that was something that I was, that was just internal for me. Like no matter what I have to do, like if God allows me to be a parent, I do not want my child to feel the way that I feel. That was something that was just at the forefront of my heart and mind. As it pertains to my
Hold on, I'm
grandmother,
going to interrupt you. When you say I do not want my child to feel the way I do, what was that feeling?
yeah, I mean, it's just um I felt a sense of like emptiness, like a void, right? So it was like when I would see my father, I knew he was my father, but I had no relationship with him. I used to always wonder why. Like, is there something about me that wasn't good enough? Is there something about me that I'm not worthy enough of his time, his love, his care, his support, his guidance? I would walk out my back door to take the trash out, and my father could be walking out his back door to set his trash out, and we could see each other the same way you and I are looking at each other on this Zoom call. And I know that he's my father because I've been told he's my father, but I have no relationship with him, so it feels like I'm looking at a stranger.
Right.
And I'm talking about like literally, like like his back door is directly across from my back door, and the only thing that separates us is an alleyway. And it was that the homes are so close that if we had a tennis ball, we could play catch back and forth.
Right.
So it was just a conflicting feeling. Like, what is it about me that's not good enough for this man to not want to invest in me, not want to spend time with me, not want to cultivate a relationship with me? It was a difficult feeling.
And how did you reconcile both of those? Because on one hand, it sounds like he was, saying, I mean, he didn't matter to himself, so of course you're not going to matter. It had nothing to do with you, right? But you mattered so much to your grandmother. So, like, how did you end up integrating those two things?
So, I think it was my grandmother's love and support. I think that really helped me tremendously, to be honest with you, because she was my grandmother, she was my mom, she was my sibling, she was my dad. She had to wear a lot of different hats. She
Right.
really did. But she didn't just do it for me, she did it for all of her students. And I'm talking about during a time and an era where the teacher lived amongst the students typically. So, she taught in the city, she lived there and dwelt right amongst most of her students. So it wasn't just me. She was this way with everybody. My grandmother was consistent across the board. So, she used to always affirm me. And I believe positive affirmations are important. She used to always affirm me like know you're somebody because God don't make no junk. That was one of the things she used to say, right? So if my father would say something to me, or if I would cry because he said he was going to come pick me up because he had visitation rights and he didn't pick me up, she would pick me up with her words. She would affirm me, so she wasn't necessarily like going to come and hug me, but she was always going to uplift me by her response verbally, and that verbal communication helped me.
And do you think that that gave you the confidence to then seek out your mentor?
What made me seek out um, my mentor was as I got older, especially as I entered college. once I read that article from Dr. King, I understood that the true purpose of education, I understood, okay, this is what it is, but what does it look like fleshed out? Right? So the true purpose of education is intelligence plus character. Okay, so what does it look like to be a man who acquires knowledge, is able to apply it in the real world, but also becomes someone of high character? Right? From a male perspective, I didn't know what that looked like, but the first thing I recognized is that I need a mentor. I need someone that can help me become a person of high character. So I did what my grandmother taught me, just to be honest with you. She said, son, when you don't know what to do, pray. So that's what I did. I prayed, and it just so happened that when I was in my junior year of college, early on into my junior year of college, my coach came into the locker room and presented with that one ticket an opportunity to go to the Knicks and Nets game that night. And ironically, it's weird because growing up in the city of Trenton, when you watch sports, we get both Philadelphia teams and we get New York teams, right? And my grandmother was actually Troy Vincent, who used to play for the Eagles elementary school teacher in the first grade. But my uncle loved the Giants and the Knicks. So every time he would come over to my grandmother's, he would watch the New York teams. And I always remember watching the interviews and listening to Charlie Ward, who was playing with the Knicks at the time. And I just, you know how you can tell when you listen to someone, the way they communicate and articulate themselves, there's a lot of wisdom and there's a lot of value that you gain just from listening to them talk. It's like there's something different about that person. And that's how I felt when I listened to Charlie Ward. So when my coach presented the opportunity for me to go to that game by presenting that one ticket, I instantly told myself I need to figure out a way to meet this man named Charlie Ward. And that's what I did. You know, I came up with a game plan, got to the game early, you know, looked for him. He wasn't there. Then I asked the coach, you know, when I saw the coach, would he ask Charlie Ward, would he come out? And he did. And sure enough, within a couple of minutes, Charlie Ward came out. And when he came out, he just simply said, you know, how can I help you? And I just poured out my heart to him. I said, I'm a male who's a junior in college who wants to be successful in life, but I don't know what to do. I need some mentorship. I need some guidance. I need someone who's willing to give me some advice that can help me become the person I know I need to become so I can have a chance. I just wanted a chance, just so I can have a chance to become a person of value in life. And who would have known that that day, you know, would have changed my life forever? Because not only did he give me advice, but he gave me an opportunity to come into his home. You know, he gave me an opportunity to no matter when I talk about it, I get emotional.
It's so emotional. It really is. I
Yeah.
feel it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about it, it's hard. But when somebody invites you into their home, it just brings back these feelings of this man was willing to invest in me, whereas my own father wouldn't. And it was the first time that I really felt valued, you know. And to this day, you know, I'm just grateful because somebody of that stature, he didn't have to pour into me. You know, he could have gave me advice from afar. He could have had phone call conversations with me. He could have texted me, but he allowed me to stay with him the summer of my junior year, going into my senior year, and then I stayed with him the summer after my senior year. And then he brought me in to work out with him in the Knicks, and he knew I had aspirations of being a professional basketball player. But all the time that I spent with him, I was learning what manhood looks like. You know, I watched him how he interacted with his kids, with his wife, with others, how he handled adversity. You know, I was able to watch a lot of those things, and if anybody knows Charlie that's listening to this, you know that Charlie he doesn't say much, but you don't always have to say much. Sometimes it's just someone's presence, even if they don't say anything. You could just learn a lot by being around someone, and that was just a game changer for me. It just really it changed my life because it taught me what was truly important, right? It helped me understand the value of mentorship, the value of giving back, the value of being present for other people. You know, so that really just it helped propel me to become the person I am today, and I'm forever grateful that you know that the Lord allowed me to meet Charlie.
And you were saying that he you know, you would have maybe thought that he would have helped you become like a better basketball player, but he taught you how to be, in some ways, a good husband and a good father. And this
Oh
kind of
yeah.
segues into this last question for you, which is, what have you learned and become that you would want to impart to young fathers who maybe didn't have a father, or whose father didn't love them, or didn't have a mentor? Like, what
Yeah.
could they do to be better to boys, their boy?
Yeah. So my dissertation work for I have my doctoral study in educational leadership is my degree, was on the lived experiences of Black fathers and how their involvement can narrow the academic achievement gap, right? So one of the things I learned from my dissertation work, and I just learned from my own lived experiences, and I do this with my son. The first thing I would say is you cannot teach a child, whether it's your own child or a student, that doesn't first know that you care about them. So the very first thing I would tell fathers listening to this is make sure your child knows. Listen to me carefully when I say this. Not only that you love them, but you like them, right? Like it's one thing to love someone and tolerate them. It's another thing to love someone and truly like them for who they are. And I think one of the greatest things for me over the last 14 years being a father is that I try to emphasize to my son every single day how much I love him, how much I care about him, how much I appreciate him, and I love him exactly the way God has created him. The sound of his voice, his smile, his ears, his nose, his height, his toes, like who he is enough, right? So that I want to fill up his cup so that when he does something wrong or I have to get on him, whether I'm coaching him or something that he didn't do that he's supposed to do, he knows that, you know, my 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 critique is coming from a place of love, right? It's not coming from a place where I don't like him, right? It's just coming from, son, I have standards and I have expectations from you. And I want you to maximize your potential. And I want you to know I love you from the bottom of my heart. So I think it's that rhythm, where we said that balance between them, knowing how much you love them and supporting them so that when you have to like give them some structure and some discipline, like they understand that it's because you really truly love them. I think that's where the schools and the rec departments need to be very selective in who they choose. So instead of just giving someone an opportunity to coach a team because they say, hey, I have the time, I want to do it. How about you have a system where you vet out people and you choose individuals, even if you have to limit how many teams that you have, so that these boys and girls, as they're being coached as young lads, as we call them, are getting coached and taught by individuals that truly care. Because, like, these are the foundational years of their lives. The way that you speak to them, what the things that you say to them, like the value system that you teach them is going to carry over into adulthood. So if they think it's about winning the game, that's what they're going to emphasize. No, it's not about the scoreboard. It's about how do you handle adversity. It's about teamwork, right? It's about knowing that if you get knocked down, you can get back up, right? It's about encouraging them. It's about teaching them to show up on time. It's about teaching them to give maximum effort in whatever they do. It's like, hey, I don't care if you don't score a basket all season long, but can you just give me your best? Because if you give me your best here, you'll give me your best in the classroom.
Right.
So I think those are areas of life when I was growing up where I'm like, I know some of the coaches. I know them by name right now as I'm thinking about them. Right? Even right now as a father, I could think back to when my son was playing basketball for rec in third grade, and some of the dads that, went to school with me and now coaching their kids, and how they're coaching, it's like you're coaching them to win a sport. You're not coaching them to win life. This is going to be someone's father, someone's husband, someone's daughter, someone's wife. Like I think we need to coach from that perspective. And then I would say teachers as well. I think teachers are real, educators are real superheroes. People like yourself, the work that you're doing. If we had more individuals like you that have the heart that you have, the passion that you have, the way that you care, that's what it takes. Because for the person that doesn't have a male figure in the household, they're going to come across a male figure in some shape, form, or fashion in life, whether it's sports or it's in the school to some degree. I don't Whether it's the custodian or the security guard or a teacher, they're gonna come across someone. What is the impact you're going to make when they come across you? That's why Dr. King posed the question that he did in 1957 when he's in Montgomery, Alabama, when he was giving a sermon in that small church that was scorching hot. He said, life's most urgent and persistent question is, what are you doing to help others? That's life's most persistent and urgent question. There's an urgency behind it. Not what are you going to do next year? Not what are you going to do 6 months from now? What are you doing right now to help others? That's an important question that challenged the congregation in 57, and it still challenges us today. Right? Because those boys that don't have a father, they need someone to feel the sense of urgency to say there's something that needs to be done. And it can't just be one or two people. It takes a village. It's never too late. I just think it's a matter of just saying, you know what? None of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes. We're all imperfect people. None of us will measure up to a mark of perfection. Like none of us, no matter what. But the question on the table is, okay, I've made some mistakes, but how can I learn from those mistakes and help others to maybe avoid some of the same pitfalls that I've experienced and some of the things that I've done? And I think that it has to be a mindset, it has to be an attitude shift. It has to be something that's so personal, so passionate to you as a man that even if you're not with, your child or your children's, mother, that you still understand that they need you, right? You don't, even if you're not in the house, you still can be present, right? You still can be active. You still can have an impact. It's just, to me, it's a matter of prioritizing things. I'm honest with people. Like, it's hard. I play professional sports. I can't keep up with sports because it occupies so much time. I dibble and dab so I have enough knowledge to have a conversation because that typically dominates conversations with men, right? Is sports. But the honest truth is, like, if I want to know how to best serve my son, serve the schools that I speak in, serve organizations like yourself, I need to read. I need to continuously increase my knowledge, right? I need to spend time, with the things that really matter to me. And I think that that's the answer for those men, right? It's like, as my pastor said this, his name is Dr. Darius Daniels. He said, what are you willing to give up to go up? What sacrifice are you willing to make so that you can change the trajectory of your life and the lives of others? It takes a sacrifice. And for me, like years ago, that was like, hey, I can't spend every evening watching Netflix or watching basketball, right?
Right.
I can't. Like I
Yeah.
can't. Like some people are anomalies where they can watch, they can read, they can retain all this information. I'm not one of them. But it's like, here's the thing. I don't want to live life with regrets. I know I'm going to make mistakes. But 10, 15 years from now, when my son is 24, when he's 30, or 10 to 15 years from now, with the students that I speak to that are 10th graders or fifth graders that are going to be 20, 21 years old, I don't want to look back and go, what if I would have spent time reading something that could have helped them? What if I would have used positive affirmations? What if I would have spent time just talking to them and letting them know that they have worth and they have value? That's where my passion is.